Hi, my name is Brett Wessner, and I am a math teacher at Cleveland High School in Seattle, Washington. This video is intended to give you a little bit of an introduction to a unit we implemented and continue to edit at our school in our geometry classes. It's a similarity unit that we use in all of our geometry classes. For us, this unit took 16 85-minute periods, but we did all of the work for all the tasks and the assignments and all the work for the CRA, for that writing, in class. So I think if you look at the calendar and study it a bit, it could be fairly easily altered to reflect a faster pace if that's necessary in your classroom if some of the assignments and tasks were given as homework, for example. But to the unit. It's designed to do three key things. So the first is to review the use of ratios and proportional reasoning. The second is to discover and use the angle relationship stemming from parallel lines, and this is where the CRA comes in. And then finally, the third thing that we hoped this unit would do was to have students synthesize their knowledge of triangles, reasoning, conditional statements, transformations, and angle relationships to better define and understand similarity itself. We did use a sports theme throughout this unit, referencing our school sports teams, so you'll see that in our local teams. But these could easily be changed to suit your local, kind of pro, college, or even high school teams. So the first problem was called batter up, and we used a baseball context to review kind of both the mechanics and the concepts of ratios and proportional reasoning. This was our opportunity to check in about prior knowledge that was necessary for a similarity unit, and also to remind students of these skills and ideas. So this was kind of a quick-hitting, 2-day kind of delve into some baseball statistics, seeing what we remembered and what we needed to review before we could move forward. The second problem is called Eagles offense. We are the Cleveland Eagles. So, and this is the college ready assessment, or the CRA, of this unit. So the basic premise of the CRA is that students are asked to determine if a basketball play and an offensive play is being run correctly, and write a report to the coach explaining their findings using new knowledge, so angle relationships from parallel lines, and also knowledge from algebra, primarily equations of lines and comparing slopes. This was the first CRA of our school year, so we did a number of scaffolding and organizing tasks that I think helped both the students and the teachers. And I'd love to highlight just two of them that I thought were particularly helpful. First, we did a web design when we went to do the compilation of our class knows and need to knows. There's a photo of this in the project briefcase. You can take a look at one that was actually from one of my classes. We purposely organized our thoughts into kind of three main bubbles. One was stuff about the problem context, so what the heck are we being asked to do? The second is knowledge we might be able to use from algebra to help us solve this problem. And then the other kind of last bubble was knowledge that we already know from geometry, or this is where a lot of our need to knows came in, so stuff that we might need to investigate further to be able to successfully report out on this problem. So this web served to guide at both our class investigations and also served as kind of a basic outline when it came time to write. So we posted this on the wall so we could view it daily and all throughout the writing process. The second thing I'll highlight is our peer editing process. I sat down with one of our language arts teachers and essentially stole and adapted one of her peer editing templates. So students completed 2 peer editing sessions in which they rated each other's work and using the feedback form. And the items on this form were directly linked to the rubric in a checklist type of way. Then students could also give more unscripted feedback at the bottom, a couple strengths and a couple things, suggestions at the bottom of the form. So my impression was that this, if nothing else, really caught a lot of the basic mistakes and gaps that occur when students are writing, especially early in the school year. I was thrilled to have students find each other's work that, for instance, a whole domain had just kind of forgotten to look at and to make sure was in their work. So, but I also had students that, for instance, I had an ELL student who had near perfect work involved, but she then, because of her language barrier, was getting advice from her classmates about tone and audience and flow that really improved her writing. So it was a really, I think, overall valuable activity, and one that I would highly recommend is worth the time if you can spare it in your classroom. The third problem, which in the project brief case is called proving similarity, we really were just pushing for, our kind of thrust there was to push for justification organization of all the statements and findings. So our logic and reasoning unit had already occurred by this point, so we drew upon that as much as humanly possible. For the formal kind of final proofs for similarity, we used what was called flowchart proofs. So hoping not to do kind of too much all at once and get too formal all at once when we're asking for really rigorous justifications, we tried to focus on the flow of the statements and justifications using this format. So kind of like a web that we used for our knows and need to knows in the prior problem. And then we were able to use a more formal proof organization during the congruence unit later on in the year. Our state test actually allows either format as long as the reasoning is clear. So we like to eventually do both and let students choose to show off their understanding in whichever way they feel best suits the problem. So all of these planning forms and tasks are included in the project briefcase in case they prove useful in your classroom as well. But I hope this clarifies a little bit of our process and purpose with this unit, and I can't wait to hear what fabulous improvements you make that I can borrow. Thanks.